Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Friday, March 25th. So today we have the moon in Capricorn all day. We will be having our last quarter moon in Capricorn at 4 degrees, 33 minutes at about 1:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There are 10 different aspects taking place today, and 9 of them involve this moon in Capricorn. Again, when the moon is in Capricorn, we feel heavy, we feel weighted. We're very connected to our earthly realm, the tasks and chores that we have to do, the roles and responsibilities that we have, and we become illuminated to where it is that we feel stuck, where it is that we feel blocked, where it is that we're experiencing some kind of restriction in our lives. So the moon in Capricorn is very weighted on our heart space, on our head space, would prefer to detach from emotions altogether and instead just focus on the productivity, the responsibility of the to-do list. Again, feeling very emotionally and spiritually satisfied when we can actually see the repercussions, the consequences, and the rewards from our actions. It's definitely revealing a different layer to some of the tough love spiritual life lessons that we've all just gone through. So right out of the gate, we have this moon in Capricorn squaring with the sun in Aries. Now, this is going to remind us of a couple of things. First of all, it's going to remind us of the restrictions, of the blockages, of the challenges that we're currently feeling in life. Why? Because we have a sense of responsibility. We know that we have to boss up. We know we have to be mature about things. We know that we have to wrap up certain life lessons and provide a certain amount of closure before we can actually go on, move on, initiating our brand new plans. Now, the sun in Aries, of course, we're in a brand new calendar. We're in this fire energy. We're in a brand new season. Many of us still very confused on what that path forward looks like. We will likely not get that much clarity until we have the new moon in Aries in about a week from now. This particular energy is really putting a huge emphasis on our karmic contracts. We are reflecting back to December and coming into this year, recognizing, where it is that we were illuminated to some dramatic changes that needed to be taken in our lives. And of course, things got stunted, things got paused. We were at the mercy of karma for the better part of this year thus far. And now we're just kind of reflecting over all of the pain, all of the suffering, all of the struggles, all of the obstacles and challenges, recognizing where it is that we do have to boss up. We do have to muster up the courage and the bravery in order to wrap this cycle up before we move forward. The moon is going to semi-square Saturn. Saturn, of course, rules over the Capricorn energy. This is going to really put an intensity on where it is that we are being called to boss up, to take control of our emotions, to acknowledge the weight, acknowledge where we feel trapped, acknowledge the roles and responsibilities in our lives that we no longer want to be connected with. We cannot continue to run from the problem areas in our life. We have to face it. We have to really acknowledge and integrate it in order for us to come up with some solutions. Now, the moon is going to bump into Jupiter in a very positive way. Jupiter, of course, wants to push us to grow, push us to expand. And where he is in Pisces energy, this is more of the spiritual understanding, trusting our intuition, trusting the greater, grander plan. Now, this is a reminder of our intuition, of our spiritual path, of our dreams, of our visions that we are wanting so freaking badly to manifest in our physical realm. But of course, there's fragments of the old version of ourselves, the old life lessons, the old soul contracts still lingering in our realm right now, won't be totally blazed up and burnt off until that new moon in Aries. So we do have a little bit more reflection to do, connections to be made. The moon is going to bump into the true node, again, our destiny point. Although this isn't the best aspect that these two could be interacting with one another, it is really putting us in a reflective position to kind of look back on the past, especially the most current circumstances and events that are really weighing on our heart space and on our head space right now. The spiritual life lessons that just feel so freaking heavy and weighted. We have to look at it from a different set of eyes. We do have the ability right now to rework the past, to kind of peel back the layers of why certain situations had to happen in order to prepare us for this moment, for our future. This is an opportunity for us to reframe the past so that we feel a little bit more at peace within ourselves in the present moment, between our heart, between our head. The moon is going to bump into Neptune in a very positive way, again, aligning with our higher selves, providing us with a spiritual healing, a spiritual understanding, recognizing where it is that our circumstances in the here and now have provided us with some not so nice situations in order for our soul to grow, our soul to evolve. Many of us do not learn these particular life lessons when everything is just peachy keen. We do have to kind of dabble in the darkness, the depths of this human experience in order to pluck out the silver linings, the life lessons, and the true meaning and purpose for why our soul has agreed to these particular circumstances, these particular contracts. The moon is going to square Chiron. The square is a tension point. It is a suggestion of an inner conflict. Chiron, of course, is the wounded healer, and the moon in Capricorn at this particular time does kind of dabble in the shadow part of the Capricorn energy. What does that mean? It means that negative Nancy comes out to play. It does kind of suggest that Debbie Downer is coming out to play as well. Again, just keep in mind that we do feel the weight of the world on our shoulders, on our heart space, on our head space with the moon in Capricorn, and especially making such a tension-filled point with the wounded healer, Chiron. This is going to illuminate the doubts, the insecurities, the sensitive nature of us really not wanting to align with our higher spirit, higher vision. It's tough for us in our ego self to make sense that there is a greater, grander plan taking place, especially when our current circumstances in our physical realm just really doesn't feel good. This is the particular point in time, again, as I've been talking about, every single time we seem to take a couple of steps forward in our spiritual growth, in our positivity, in our confidence, those darker force agenda energies definitely try to pull us back. This is a good example of that, especially when we just kind of made a little bit of understanding, a little bit of growth in the spiritual lessons that we're currently facing. This is when we start talking ourselves out of the higher vibrations that we just kind of integrated into our heart space, into our head space, and of course in our soul. This negative energy isn't going to last for too long. The moon is going to trine Uranus. The trine is a good energy. It's a blending of energy. Uranus, of course, the great awakener, likes to show us where disruptions taking place in our lives have taken place for us instead of to us. Sometimes we need to be shaken. We need to be rattled in order to recognize what it is that we found ourselves in a rut about here in this physical realm, what it is that is not strong enough to stand the test of times in our physical realm. And of course, this Uranian energy being in Taurus at this particular time is very focused on our daily lives, the daily routines, the daily structures of how it is that we go about taking care of ourselves, the relationships that we have in our physical realm, those of worth, those of value, and those that need to be detached from altogether. This Tauran energy also rules over our safety, our security, how resourceful we actually feel, and where it is that we need to become a little bit more dependent on ourselves instead of looking outside of ourselves to fill that void. We are definitely being illuminated right now to being kind of guided to what it is that we know that we want, need, and desire in order for us to feel a little bit more emotionally stable, emotionally fulfilled. We're also recognizing, because of this Uranian energy that is more focused on independence and freedom and liberation, especially in contrast to this Capricorn energy that tends to highlight restrictions and conformity where it is that we need to break free. We're definitely being illuminated to what it is that we need to wrap up, what it is we need to detach from, what it is that we definitely need to cut the cord with in our physical realms in order to grant ourselves that freedom, that independence, that liberation from some of the things that we're really feeling weighted down about, tied down about in our physical realms. The moon goes ahead and bumps into Mars. Mars, of course, the ruler of our physical energy, our drive, our passion, even our anger. And this is not the best interaction between the two. Now, let me just tell you, this is likely going to manifest in a situation outside of us, maybe a disruption in our day and our plans. Maybe this is information or actions coming from people that we love, people that we value, putting us in a situation where we get to make another choice. What is the choice? Well, we could react from ego and act out on our feels, not thinking of the consequences. We could really project our frustrations, our doubts, our insecurities onto the people that do not deserve it in our lives. This is definitely a time where we have to think very clearly about the actions that we are going to take, considering the consequences. Mars, of course, would rather act first and think about the consequences later, and that can definitely get us in a little bit of trouble because the moon in Capricorn is very focused on the weight of the roles and responsibilities on us at this time. Because Mars is frustrated, not wanting to deal with this weight, we could really see lashing out in a very dramatic way that is definitely not recommended. The other choice that we have, of course, is to pause, is to act as the observer, is to respond from our higher selves, recognizing where these triggers in our external realm is providing us with a choice point to do things differently, to act differently, to respond differently, to break the trauma, break the chain of patterns and cyclic nature in some of these situations where we tend to rely on our ego selves to just push through it. We really do want to focus on building new qualities and characteristics, new ways of communicating, new ways of acting, new ways of taking responsibility to some of the cluster Fs that happen outside of our power. The moon goes ahead and bumps into Mercury in a positive way. And this gives us a little bit of an opportunity to really get clear within our inner dialogue, within our inner realm, on what it is that we have been suffering with, the divide, the extreme choices, the extreme polarity within us, especially getting our heart and head on the same page. For the first time in a long time, we are going to feel like we are in alignment, even if it is just for a brief period. This is going to provide us with a little bit of clarity on what is happening within us, and definitely providing us with clarity on that earlier situation that happened outside of us that we feel very out of control about. This is likely going to reflect on where it is that we need to implement and create some new boundaries. Why? Because we need to protect ourselves. Why? Because we are still engaged in some energy exchanges that aren't very equaled out, aren't very fair, aren't very balanced. And because of that, we're recognizing that even in some of our closest relationship dynamics, we do have to provide ourselves with a little bit of space, a little bit of boundaries in order to actually get clear on what it is that we need to do with these personal relationships from here. Lastly, we have Mercury semi-squaring Uranus. This is always an interesting aspect when these two get involved because Mercury rules over the lower egoic intellect, where logic and practicality rule, and Uranian energy rules over the higher intellect, where intuition and higher intelligence rule. This particular tension point is really putting us at odds, our ego versus our spirit, but for good reason. Our ego, because our ego relies on our current set of circumstances in our physical realm, we're not able to see the possibilities. We're not able to fully understand and integrate that our intuition, our higher selves, that the universe is trying to point us in a different direction. Of course, that Uranian energy likes to shock us. It likes to awe us. It likes to disrupt our thoughts, our emotions, our physical realms in order for us to see a different perspective. This is almost a little bit of chaos going on because, again, our lower intellect, our ego intellect is really kind of conflicting with our gut, with our intuition, with our heart and soul. And this particular tension point does need to be illuminated where it is that we're feeling uncertain, where it is that we're not trusting ourselves, where it is that we're feeling overly anxious, and where it is that we need to make efforts to meet in the middle between our higher and lower intellect in order to actually see the perspective a little bit differently. There is a perfect balance between the ego self and the higher self that will lend enough logic and practicality to the intuitional gut reactions that we are being guided to pursue.